Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a two-game college basketball slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? That really does help the channel a lot. I am going to be moving fast here as I did record the video already and it corrupted, so I'm trying to speed it up here. Tomorrow I will be doing college basketball, NBA, and MLB. Today I will not be doing NBA. The slate is absolutely insane and I just don't like it at all. So we're just going to do college basketball today, and tomorrow we'll get into the nitty-gritty of baseball, so that's going to be awesome. So let's go ahead and get into the slate. We did really well yesterday, so let's continue that today. My two core plays are Dre Davis for Seton Hall and Justin Webster for UNLV. That is pending that he does end up drawing the start, which he should as long as Luis Rodriguez is out. We do have two questionable tags today, one being Luis Rodriguez for UNLV. He is unlikely to play, I would suppose, because he hasn't played yet in the tournament here. The other guy that is questionable is Worcester for Utah. Now, he hasn't played actually since the middle of January, so it's unlikely that he plays as well. But if for some crazy reason Rodriguez was to play, Webster would no longer be a core play, but I do expect him to play. So we're going to get into these games. This slate features two games, UNLV versus Seton Hall, which is a 4.5-point spread in Seton Hall's favor, 141 total points, and then VCU and Utah, which is a 7-point spread in Utah's favor, 145.5 points there. So both games are pretty similar, I would say, from that perspective. Seton Hall is actually my favorite team on the slate because they are the team that's priced the best. Dre Davis is my favorite player overall on the slate as he's priced pretty fairly and he has a pretty good ceiling and a high floor as well. In fact, I think he has the highest floor on the slate for my guys, other than Debian Smith for Utah, who's a little bit more expensive. Um, and then Dre Davis also has the highest ceiling, uh, other than Devion Smith for Utah as well. So let's just keep that in mind here. But right now, we look like he's a great option on the slate. And looking at other options on Seton Hall, Seton Hall has uh, Wazoo here for them is also an interesting play today. He's got a pretty safe floor and a high ceiling. The ceiling is not as high as good as what I'd like for his price, but he's relatively safe today. I don't think he's gonna 5x or anything, but I do think he has the potential to 4x relatively easily here. He's got a good rebounding numbers here, and if he can score some points, he'll be fine. He looks like a really solid play. He was very close to be a core play for me as well. I also like Dawes here for Seton Hall as he has a lot of potential in this game. He's been playing fairly well the last 4 games, and his ceiling here is pretty good here, as well as his floor being pretty low. He's a little bit underpriced, actually. I expected his price to be up to $7,000 the way he's played lately, as in the season it had crept up over above 7,000, but I'm happy that it's below it, so he's definitely a viable option today. Kadari Richmond is a GPP only play as he has a low floor and a high ceiling for the price. He's a little bit overpriced today. He's the only guy in Seton Hall that I felt was that way, and so I think he is probably avoidable, but for GPP purposes, he's definitely a stackable option. Looking at Jaden Badiako, he's a little bit overpriced for them, and he's pretty avoidable as the fifth starter. Really, the top 4 guys are the best options for this team, and their bench, which they don't utilize too much, is largely avoidable today. Looking at UNLV, this is another team that is a little bit overpriced today. I do think that Justin Webster, though, is a core play, assuming he draws the start again. He's been playing pretty solid and has a pretty safe floor here if he is playing the minutes and starting. So as long as he gets that situation, then he'll be okay. But he's not a must play. He's very borderline simply because he has such a low floor. But again, if he gets those minutes, he's going to be fine here. Shane Noel is interesting because he has started the last couple of games. He replaced Khalid Boone in the starting lineup, and he seems to have been. And he's done okay in those 3 games with 10, 23, and 9 fantasy points each. He's a little bit cheap. He is cheap here, so he's kind of a Hail Mary value play, but he definitely carries some potential. Other guys on this team, Thomas would probably be my favorite play from the team simply because he has a nice upside. He's also got a good amount of assists, and he's been rebounding decent throughout the season as well. He averages 2.8, and that's okay here. He does need to score a decent amount of real points to pay off, but he should be able to handle that today in this matchup. I also think that Keelan Boone is a very fadeable option as he's just overpriced, frankly. Their other starter, Rob Whaley, is also not somebody that I would really consider too much today. And then their first guy off the bench, which will be likely Khalid Boone. He has some potential today. He's kind of got a low floor and a high ceiling, and so while he does have that upside, he is had some rough games. But he didn't play the last 3 games that UNLV had. He didn't play in 2 of them, where he only played 1 minute, and the one where he played 1 minute. So the last game was actually his first game back from being hurt, and he didn't start the last game. If he does draw the start, that would push Shane Noel back to the bench, and so that would hurt Noel and then bring Khalid Boone to being a viable option here. The other guys that come off the bench, Jackie Johnson, he's largely avoidable here. And if for some reason Luis Rodriguez was able to play today, I would not be utilizing him at all, and I'd also remove Justin Webster from my core plays. Looking at VCU and Utah game here, so VCU first. They don't have any injuries, but they are the deepest team when it comes to how many guys get minutes on this slate, and so they are going to be somewhat concerning to use from that perspective just because of that. They're also not priced ideally for their potentials, as most of these guys have low floors and not great ceilings. Zeb Jackson would be my favorite play from the team, though, as he's got a pretty good minutes set right around 30 minutes a game for the most part, and he's got a good scoring potential, though he does need to score in double figures to pay off here, as he's priced up a little bit, but he has some good potential today, so he's definitely worth a look. He also has a pretty good ceiling. Shugla is kind of a boomer bust option today, as he doesn't have great ups and I mean, he has really wide ranges of ups and downs, and he's got a very low floor. However, he does have a pretty good ceiling, and he's got some 3-point bonus opportunity as well, and so that does give him some potential on the slate, though he's a little overpriced. Um, Really, there's not much else from this team that I like other than maybe Joe uh, Basalmi, who comes off the bench. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. He's been playing decent minutes for the most part. He does have that low floor, as we've got for a lot of guys on this team. But he is, if he can get into double figures in total points, then he'll be able to pay off here because he does get some peripheral stats like rebounds and 3-point shots that give him some upside. And so he's definitely worth a look. The last game, he shot 6 threes, though he didn't hit any. In fact, of the last 3 games, he shot quite a few threes. He just hasn't hit many of them. If he can hit a few, then he'll definitely have that opportunity to pay off today. Lowell actually has some utility as well today, but he definitely carries a lot of risk and doesn't have much of a ceiling to love on the slate. The other bench guys are very avoidable, as they don't play enough meaningful minutes to be super viable here. Looking at Utah here, though, we do have some guys that have some interest here, but they all Davian Smith is the de facto best player on the slate. He has the highest floor and ceiling of any player on the slate, and he definitely draws some potential. His price definitely makes it difficult to roster, however, especially if you use any of the more expensive plays from Seton Hall, simply because he is the most expensive player on the slate, and he draws that high upside. He does draw some upside, but he definitely carries risk here because it's hard to get a lot of value plays. And on the slate, there's just not a lot of guys under $5,000 that really look great. I do think that Lawson Loverling, if he was to draw the stout, would be kind of a Hail Mary type of value play. And then Ben Carlson would also be a guy that, if he does, if he plays, he has a good potential to get over 10 fantasy points. But if he can get closer to 15 fantasy points, he becomes a good viable play. But he's definitely high risk. I do think that Devian Smith is probably a great play, but I have trouble liking Keita or Loverling or Erickson because they just don't play enough minutes to gain a lot of consistency as a team. And then looking at Brandon Carlson and Cole Bajema, and even Gabe Madsen, they all just a little bit overpriced for the slate and are hard to roster as a result. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.